And it's a beautiful, beautiful morning, midweek, Wednesday, 25th April, exactly 5 more days to end April 2018. Of course, what a beautiful day to be alive, to bless God, to be grateful that you can see, you can hear, you can move your parts of your body, because not everyone can. People are actually in the hospital having to pay for oxygen. So if you get it for free, you have every right to be thankful to your maker. Of course, it's another day, and I'm here with Johnny will be joining us soon, although he's running late.
I am sure that if indeed this morning you invited God or Allah into your day, certainly you will not walk alone like Liverpool did yesterday. It was a fantastic game, and I'm sure this morning you're ready to get God or Allah into your life and have a beautiful Wednesday morning. We're here starting from now till 9 a.m. Our job is to excite you, get you out of bed, and get you to get to work and be productive. You're watching us from the center of the world, and so everything here is exciting. And Amma is also quite excited today.
Yes, I am, because today is World Malaria Day. And you know, Bright, the fight against malaria has been real. It's been spoken about. Every year we come back with a new fight or new strategies to kill, you know, the mosquito and reduce malaria. But oftentimes it doesn't happen, because either we're too unconcerned about our surroundings, and so we're looking forward to doing the big things, such as even using drones to kill all the mosquitoes, whereas we can start off with a basic thing such as cleaning your environment, making sure you take away the stagnant water and all that, so that the mosquito doesn't breed and eventually.
If you watch what others have done, I mean, if you visit some of the countries, I think what they have done is to try and fight that little thing from where it breeds, and so gutters are closed, covered, and so you won't get the mosquito to breed, and so they're able to in some way control it. But over here, we're spending all our money on buying what they call the insecticide-treated nets. I'm not saying it's bad. You need to protect people once the mosquito is around, but the suggestion has been that let us put much more energy into fighting where that criminal comes from.
Exactly, the roots of it.
So cover all gutters, make sure the drains are flowing with clean water. Even if it's not clean, they flow well, so that it does not allow that thing to breed. But if we continue to spend our energies on buying the treated nets and spending huge sums of money on mosquito conferences, malaria conferences, we'll be where we're 20 years from now. We'll sit here and say good morning. Another malaria day. Ghana is talking about fighting malaria.
But you know, the even sad part of it when you mention mosquito nets is the fact that people actually use those nets to fish. And so you're wondering what has gone down with our basic education, because it doesn't have to be high-tech. Something as simple as a net, you've been told it has insecticide, it can kill mosquitoes. People will come, you ask them why they're doing that, and they say it's warm, and so many other reasons.
But that's the point. Look, over here, the weather isn't that warm, but Charlie, check some parts of the country, and I bet you won't fix a net.
But Brad, if they understood the cost of treating malaria and the problems, the complications of malaria, such as seizures and even renal failure, maybe you would actually use that money to buy a fan, and so you can use your insecticide-treated net and then protect yourself and your family.
In some instances, the fan is even blowing heat.
Indeed it is. But Solace has all the news for us here. Good morning, Solace. It looks like it's a black and white day.
It's as if we planned it.
Yeah, telepathy works, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does work.
Tell it. You're not after me.
When you do copy, you call it telepathy. You think I didn't know that yesterday you told Solace before we left that, hey, today let's do black and white.
Really?
I guess you didn't want to say.
Right.
I just kept quiet.
Unlike some witch hunters like yourself, we don't do witching.
You know what I like about Solace? She's always on watch. I don't know.
I love watches. I love watches. I can't do without watches.
You spend a fortune on buying these.
No, I actually buy good ones. I've had this for about 4 years. So, you know, I don't have to buy different ones.
I'll buy you a very expensive one on your bed.
Indeed.
Thank you very much. That's just in 2 months. I'll hold you to that. On live television.
He's been promising people for life. He owes Babina's daughter ice cream for 5 years. Please.
Oh, okay. So I'm in a long queue. That's fine. Now let's go away from all that fun and do some sports of news from Ghana and some parts of the world. Hello and welcome back. This is Morning News on TV3. My name is Solis Rose Gorte. Into the details, gunshots in Bolgatanga, the Upper East Regional Capital, left residents running for cover. Now, the aggression is reported to have been over a piece of land being claimed by sides of a chieftaincy dispute. Soldiers were called in to patrol the streets as shops were hurriedly closed, with traders rushing home. There's currently heavy security presence within the township. Security forces have been on the alert in the area known for fragile peace between the two Bolga skins, the Nabat Raymond Alafia Abilba II and Nabat Joseph Abeka Nunge Buri. Now on to issues regarding health infrastructure. The Ankafo Hospital in the Central Region is in a state of disrepair and requires an urgent facelift. Now, mental health patients abscond due to the poor state of the facility, raising safety concerns. Ajua Adobiowusu has come through with the following report.
The Ankafo Psychiatric Hospital, established about 53 years ago to render accessible, quality and efficient mental health care, has since not seen any renovation. The hospital is bedeviled with enormous infrastructural challenges that threaten its collapse, risking the lives of both staff and patients. In 2016 alone, about 26 mental patients absconded, with the number increasing to 39 in 2017. A tour around the facility reveals that those who absconded may have taken advantage of the weak infrastructure to break through the windows at the wards. This is one of the rooms at the Nightingale ward, which is supposed to be the VIP ward for the Ankafo Psychiatric Hospital. These are the washrooms of the mental health patient. I understand that this place was cleaned this very morning, but it's always leaking. That is how come you find the place in such a state. The Nightingale ward, which is popularly referred to as the VIP, was in so bad a state that even the patients had abandoned it. The road which leads to the reproductive health units of the hospital, where expectant mothers deliver, has very bad roads, posing a risk to both the mother and unborn child. The mortuary at the hospital, which was a major source of revenue, has also broken down for 2 years now. According to the medical health director, David Otosrebo, the structure could help generate the much-needed revenue to run the facility. The staff quarters is also a death trap now. Apart from infrastructure, drugs meant for mental health patients, which are supposed to be supplied to the facility for free, are now sold by some pharmacies due to failure by government to provide subsidies on the drugs.
One thing with psychotropic drugs, they are more expensive than the normal drugs. So people don't import them, because government is bringing them free.
This nurse is very aggrieved by the situation.
Ever since Kwame Nkrumah put up this facility, virtually we've not had any infrastructure development. There are washrooms, nothing to write home about. The food that the patient eats, in fact, if you see it, you might even cry. And sometimes when they eat it and they are not satisfied, they feel it is the nurses who didn't give them enough food, and then sometimes they tend to even attack some of us.
The health authorities are therefore calling on private organizations, corporate bodies and individuals to offer their support to these neglected patients who may pose a serious risk to society if not well catered for.
Now, the Food and Drugs Authority has retrieved close to 6,000 capsules of tramadol from some 50 licensed chemical shops in the Western region. Now, Western Regional Director of the FDA, Abu Smaila, told TV3 that over 90% of the tramadol was seized at Asankregua and other mining communities.
This is a registered product, all right. It's supposed to be dispensed in a pharmacy. You come with a prescription. But unfortunately, we are finding a lot of them in licensed chemical shops, which are not supposed to stock prescription-only medicines and other pharmacy-initiated medicines. They are only supposed to sell over-the-counter medicines. That is why they are called OTC licensed chemical shops. However, we occasionally come across those of a higher strength, like for this one, like this 120 milligram. And those ones we are finding just few of them in the system. This 120 milligram, this is 225 milligrams. So far, this is what we have found over the period that we have been. I think it's a total of about 80 tablets. So if I have to tell us where he bought it from, we are investigating him, and he's also cooperating. And I think what has come out is that most of them, they say, like, they buy from peddlers. But our main concern is for this one, how they get them. So I think we also are working on this one so that we'll see how best we can restrict the distribution. So we're trying to put measures to make sure that the distribution of these things is properly enforced, where we try to tell wholesalers to try as much as possible not to sell prescription-only medicines to facilities that are not supposed to dispense prescription-only medicines.
Now, away from some health issues, let's do some others. And findings from a survey by auditing firm PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, has ranked Abidjan Port as the most effective business and trade hub in West Africa. The report recommends an additional $1.5 billion to expand the Tema port to improve trade and investment in the sub-region.
The findings covered ports in Eastern, Western and Southern Africa. In the East African countries, it cited limited capital injection into the construction of shipping lines and the lack of capacity of staff to improve on operations. The report highlighted the lack of transparency in the tariff regime among private partners at the ports. However, in the Southern African countries, the report indicated that a huge capital investment has improved on trade. At the launch of the report, the researchers identified that ports in West Africa can improve if funds are injected. The Abidjan port was identified as a trade hub in the West African sub-region. A director with PricewaterhouseCoopers in South Africa, Dr. Andrew Shaw, proposed to government of Ghana to increase investment in the Tema port expansion project.
Automation has been applied. There's some sophisticated IT systems. There's some more and more sophisticated equipment within ports. The degree to which ports can be encouraged to be ahead of the curve in this regard is really important.
A senior manager with PricewaterhouseCoopers, Francois Bortes, noted countries could lose 2% of GDP if not much attention is paid to port expansion.
A lot of the larger ports, which is sort of bubbling in the 1 million to 500,000 TEU category. And what is interesting to us is which of these ports will eventually emerge as a hub. So we think that at least there's at least one port in West Africa that will emerge as a hub, and then one port in East Africa.
Reacting to the report, a director at the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Chris Amedo, said additional capital has been budgeted to expand the Tema and Takoradi ports.
It is easy to declare yourself a hub, but it is actions that will identify you truly as one. The Tema port expansion, it is a $1.5 billion project in Tema port, and this we are doing in collaboration with MPS, Meridian Port Services.
Recommendations from the report are to be presented to government for implementation.
Now let's head to the courts, where the Supreme Court has set June 7 to give its judgment on an application for interpretation brought before it by lawyers of former NCA board chair Eugene Bafo-Boni and 4 others. The 5 accused persons are seeking full pre-trial disclosure of all documents and witnesses the state intends to rely on in their prosecution. Solomon Menya was in court and has filed this report.
The 7-member Supreme Court panel, presided over by Justice William Atuguba, ordered lawyers for the former board chairman of the National Communication Authority, Eugene Bafo-Boni, and 4 others on trial for causing financial loss to the state to file their statement of case within 2 weeks. The Apex Court further directed the Chief State Attorney to, within 2 weeks of receipt of that of the plaintiffs, filed its statement of case. The Deputy Attorney General told the court he had received the statement of cases of the 5 accused persons and has filed a composite statement in response to the issues. Presiding Judge Justice William Atuguba on Tuesday afforded the lawyers the chance to canvass argument to support their case, but they all opted to rely on their written submissions already filed.
In view of the June 7 date set by the Apex Court to give its judgment on this particular matter, what it means is that the case before the High Court involving the state and also former Cocoa Board CEO Dr. Stephen Opuni would also have to be put on hold, since his lawyers are also seeking an interpretation of the same Article 19(2) ENG of the 1992 Constitution.
The 5 accused persons, Eugene Bafuboni, board chairman of the NCA, George Derrick Opon, a director of Infralog Development Limited (IDL), William Tetetevie, the former Director General of the NCA, and Nana Ousu Ansao, a former board member, Alhaji Salifu Mimina Osman. They are facing charges of causing financial loss to the state to the tune of 4 million Ghana cedis.
Now let's do some banking news, where the Bank of Ghana says it is not aware of the commencement of operations of the US-based Coins Bank in the country. Now, the second Deputy Governor, Elsie Awaji, said the regulator has not received any application from the bank on their plans to operate in Ghana.
In making sure small denominations are given value, the US-based Coins Bank ensures customers are responsible for their coins by saving them and earning interest. Coins are accepted as deposits from customers, and the bank invests majority of the deposits in bonds and stocks on behalf of these customers. The bank has served notice to commence business in Ghana and some other African countries, but the Bank of Ghana says it is unaware of the operations of this new bank.
We, as regulators of the banking industry, have the mandate to approve and license any operator that wants to operate as a bank. And to our knowledge, we have no application from a Coins Bank to operate as a bank. And if this bank, this entity you're talking about, intends to operate a bank in Ghana, it is required to obtain a license from us to conduct lawful banking business.
The Coins Bank, which specializes in borrowing and lending money, currently has branches operating across the world except for Africa.
Right, now traders at Manso Musiaso in the Amansie West district of the Ashanti region are angry with the local assembly over the poor condition of their trading space. Now they've issued a 2-week ultimatum for the assembly to improve sanitation and infrastructure at the Manso Musiaso market. A report by Benjamin Adu. According to the traders, the Manso Musiaso market is unattractive for buying and selling. The environment is muddy anytime it rains. Due to lack of space within the market, some traders have resorted to trading along the road linking Manso Musiaso to Antwerp Room. Each trader pays a daily toll of 1 cedi to the assembly, complaining they feel neglected as the assembly has failed to improve facilities at the market. A new market structure started by the former Member of Parliament for Amansie West, Grace Addo, has been abandoned since she lost her party's primaries in 2016. The traders want the assembly to help complete works on the abandoned market structure.
We have 2 market days. Most of the traders are home because of the rain, since there is no place to sit.
Now they've stopped the Galamsey work, right? There's no more work in here. There's nothing better in here. No government work in here. What they do is they're trading, right? Yeah, so we expect the government to help us so that we can achieve something better for the future.
The Queen Mother of Manso Musiaso, Nanabna Achia, also expressed concern about the situation, urging the assembly to come to the aid of the traders.
We
have discussed this issue with the DC, but the assembly has failed to act. We're pleading with the president to come to our aid.
Well, Well, that's all for the news this morning on New Day. My name is Solis Rose Gorty. We've been live on DSTV channel 279. Always interactive on our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, as well as Twitter. Do join us for more news updates in our subsequent bulletins. Good morning.
Welcome back. It's time for us to touch on newspaper headlines. We'll start off with Daily Guide. It says, parents of Kotobabi tragedy victims break silence. Also, 3 cops have been grabbed for robbery. CID grills 4 more ex-presidents, and then Opuni's assets frozen again. Then also, Daily Graphic says 3 policemen interdicted for selling AK-47 rifle to civilian. Then a lawyer and his accomplice have been caged 12 years for land fraud. Also, decision irreversible. That's coming from Bank of Ghana as they stand by their recapitalization deadline. Then also, Daily Statement says, see your lawyers to bail you. Wontumi to double salary NDC appointees. Then 3 policemen also have been arrested in illegal arms deal with robbers. Then NDC reviews its unity walks to level playing field for the aspirants. Then on The Independent, it says Ministry of Health signs MOU to deploy drone technology for efficient health delivery. Then also culture of leniency that once prevailed will not be countenanced. That's coming from BOG. Then Economy Times says government beats 2017 fiscal deficit target. Also, Ghana's 4th oil field may commence production in 2021. Then bank depositors prioritizing safety over yield and service. Then Gold Street Business also says GOG ExxonMobil agreement still hanging. Accra to get $500 million iconic rail station as government turns debt capital into value. Then PFJ recovery hampered by lack of extension officers. And then the Finder also says Mahama 39.5%, Kufuor 33%, Nanado 10%, and Professor Mills 4% increase in presidential office staff positions. Also, families cry for justice for defiled girls. Adopt a Bin campaign kicks off as renewed efforts to keep Accra clean gain momentum. Then trade in human vital organs is callous. That's coming from the Interior Ministry. And then finally, Supreme Court fixes June 7 to rule on NCA's interpretation. Then also Ghanaian Times says, Bolga police averts bloody clash between 2 youth groups. Also, Ghana is to conduct a Greek census from April to July. Then the CID has submitted Koku Anyedoho's docket to AG's department. Then a lawyer and another have been jailed 12 years for fraud. They conspired to swindle businessman of $200,000. Then Daily Heritage says, Abavana pesticide poisoning. 4th baby has been hospitalized after death of twins and 2.5-year-old boy. Then again, Supreme Court is to rule in 44 days concerning the NCA $4 million document request. Then double salary scandal, CJA to petition Mr. Martin Amidou. Then BNFT has interesting stories. It says no turning back on banking reforms. That's coming from Central Bank. Livestock sector nears collapse. And then the Chinese eye the railway sector. Then also publisher says Opuni sues Liu Wayne, demands 5 million Ghana cedi million or 5 million cedis for defamation. Then Wontumi brags that his opponent was scared. Lawyer has been jailed 7 years for fraud. Samira promotes reading culture and Otumfuo spiritualist is angry. Then finally, Today says Indum supports 8 students with 80,000 Ghana cedi to start business. GFA VIP has been fired. Then Sempe power of attorney to journalist is fake. That's coming from the GTC. Then finally, Gomwa East blows 81,000 Ghana cedis on DCE's funeral. So those are all the stories carried on the various headlines or papers that we have this morning.
The Otumfuo's spiritualist story is a serious one because if it's indeed angry, then I'm wondering those who are proponents of this same-sex marriage, they should be careful.
They should.
Yeah, those spiritual, they can be very powerful.
Of course. I think that our African culture itself frowns upon it heavily.
Right.
And, you know, I don't think this back and forth of a postmodernist theory and an advanced world and to be part of the international society, all this hogwash and baloney conversation about same-sex. Even our dogs at home, do not have a male dog mounting a male dog. Right. So why should it be a human being? I mean, I don't know who's thinking, but let's look at the countries that have practiced these things and have legalized them.
And where they've gone.
What has, I mean, as soon as people start having a certain kind of conversation and a certain kind of right, the social makeup of the people itself. And so it doesn't hurt anymore for those countries practicing those, for somebody to pull up a gun and shoot another.
And I agree. I mean, I'm happy the Otunfo spiritualist is angry. At least it makes us understand that some traditional leaders are rooting against this issue because they haven't really been heard to add their voice to this fight against same-sex.
It's not Christianity, but it's not our local tradition.
Well, I mean, so across platform, on all, I don't know which religion in the world okays same-sex marriage. I don't know which religion. Maybe I'm ignorant.
Well, if they think atheism is a religion, then they believe, because anything goes for them. There is no...
Is atheism a religion?
Yeah. People practice it or believe in it, that there is no God. So for them, that is what they believe, and that's what they practice. Okay. And so it is a religion.
The fact that
per
they
their
believe
definition.
there's no God, that's their God. So there's a religion.
Just the belief of it.
But I am thinking that, you see, but my worry about this is that, look, when Madame Theresa May said that she, as in the United Kingdom, is ready to help African countries that are prepared to relax laws that disallow same-sex marriage. You see, the leaders were gathered in front of her, were clapping, and I kept thinking about it. What were they clapping for? Did they hear the woman speak, or they felt that she had paused, so they should clap? And so the Otunfo's spiritualist man, I guess, is sending a message to them. Look, even if you take away the laws in our constitution, our customary laws, and he said in the story that over here it is a taboo. Our traditions, our customs are against same-sex marriage. So Madame Theresa May and her people can come and take a look at our constitution and decriminalize the laws that go against same-sex. But if you go away from the constitution, our customs, our traditions, it's against it.
And you see, customs and traditions form part of the constitution, if you will, plus common law and other things. And look, this is where I miss Mugabe. I miss good old Mugabe.
It wouldn't happen. He
would speak his mind in spite of the platform to whoever, and he doesn't care. What is wrong is wrong. That's not connoted. I mean,
let's not clap, certainly. But Daily Heritage also touches on the poisoning, the pesticide poisoning, and the fact that a fourth baby has been hospitalized is worrying for me, because then doesn't mean that we're in control of what really happened with the fumigation and the spread of that particular pesticide. Because if it's in the same neighborhood, the same probably neighboring house has been able to even get in touch with this pesticide, then it's a very worrying issue. I don't know how many more may be hospitalized out of this. And so would ask the FDA, the MOH, whichever appropriate organizations to get in there, make sure they tackle it properly.
I'm told that there's an investigation that's ongoing, the FDA with the EPA
to
and the Ministry of Agri.
That thing came in.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope to God that we don't get another white paper that talks about plenty grammar, no show.
Yeah, but you know, Johnny, yesterday, the man who, I mean, when we spoke about it with the, with the FDA, he seemed to mention that we should go to, you know, licensed chemical sellers. But the truth of the matter is, stepping out of the FDA's jurisdiction and saying we should go to these licensed chemical sellers, we don't know who is licensed, because the idea is to paste it so that everyone knows you own a license. But you go to most offices, they don't even have it. But he's practicing. And so have they been able to, you know, cooperate amongst themselves, these institutions, and say, we're going on a rampage. Anyone who doesn't have the license, like the tax GRA is doing for their tax stamp, go around and ensure that everyone has the license, because most of us are uneducated. Let's be real. And so my grandmother is not going to stand there and be looking out for a license before she asks to buy whatever she's so used to buying, because this is what she knows works for her.
I put that to him yesterday, and I even made a suggestion that, look at the number of unemployed graduates we have. If the FDA, for example, engages them on a commission basis and trains them for market surveillance, so these graduates will go out there, fish out for miscreants, and then each arrest you are able to facilitate. You get a percentage of whatever fine the person gets. He walked into the idea and says they're already doing that with their national service.
It's good investigations are ongoing. I think that the FDA has always told us that they send their men out. I think they should go out. Johnny, if you, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, if you visit certain places in Accra, right, Bubuashi, Dakoma, Choco, Jamestown, those areas, you find all manner of things being hawked on the street by vehicles. Right. They will tell you, this is a cream or a powder. If you put it in your fridge, it will kill cockroaches in the fridge. If you put it under your bed, and all kinds, and they are on loudspeakers announcing, and people are rushing to buy. So apart from investigating this, once they have said that we sent our men round, I guess that they should increase the number of people they send to town to check this. It is happening. It's happening. It is happening. Before another person goes to buy another dangerous thing.
I finally, I mean, the IGP says what 3 policemen who sold their AK-47 rifles have been interdicted. Yeah. I mean, if PIPs have confirmed that these people confirm, why do we interdict? Because interdiction doesn't mean dismissal. Right. No. Interdiction means they could be recalled. Interdiction means they could be earning a portion of their salary. Interdiction means that they could have some privileges running by them. These are clear criminals. You don't need. I mean, what business has a policeman selling his rifle belonging to the state to a private individual? What's the point? So the policeman who's supposed to protect me, and you see, when we say these things, they think we're hitting on the policeman. We are not. There are a few bad nuts in there that you yourself must help to flush out. Certainly. Can you imagine?
And that's a statesman's story.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not. It's on the front page of the graphic. It's on the front page of the Daily Guide. It's all over the place. And I keep asking, what level of training do we give to the people who wear uniforms on our behalf in this country? Well, can you trust a policeman and say that, look, Chief, my alley is dark, my home is not safe. I want the patrol team to come in.
You can trust some, but I mean, you can't trust all amidst these issues, and so that's where the problem is. So they should make sure they're clamping down on the bad nuts. But it's time for us to rant, and we're talking about World Press Freedom Day.
Are we free?
That's the question we have to ask. Are we really free?
Has been threatened. Tanam has been beating. Latif has been beating. Yesterday when I spoke with President Roland Afomoni, he said that the GJ is putting together a legal team to start looking at these things and take legal advice.
We should be trained in
Taekwondo or something.
No.
Like that.
Protecting yourself.
No. Body something.
You should have body armor. Body armor.
Yeah,
so when they hit you, you will not feel it.
Yeah, even if you feel a small pain.
Okay.
Please come and look for Bright and be beating him. But of course, let's talk about it and ask the question whether journalists in this country are really free to do their work and to do it well. Let's go out on the streets and see what you have to say.
This is what it feels like. Good morning, and today's discussion is a prelude to the World Press Freedom Day to be held on May 3 here in Ghana. And there have been reports of attacks on media practitioners here in the country. The latest one is on my colleague Godfrey Tanam at the Accra Circuit Court, where he was arrested and heckled by the police. How did we get here? Does it not dent the democratic credentials of our country? This is Daily Rant. Let's keep talking.
First of all, I believe that as a reporter, no story is worth your life. So take your security into your own hands. No story is worth reporting if it will expose you, first of all, to danger or even deprive you of your life. So if you behave in a, sorry to say, in a stupid way and you are assaulted, I have no sympathies for you.
So don't do exclusive stories?
Do exclusive stories, but not at the peril of your life.
Oh, really?
Once you sense threats, back off. My point is, if you don't live to tell the story, then the story is not worth telling. So we are told from day one, as a journalist, as a reporter, take your security into your own hands. First of all, you've gone to a place to cover a story. You are taking footage. And you sense danger, that somebody is disapproving of your filming. And then you are asked not to film. Back off. It's as simple as that. If you continue in that foolhardy nature and you are attacked, you are to blame. Me, honestly, that's what I think.
Well, if you all continue like this, you are going to have cowards doing this.
journalism, sometimes, of course, no story is worth more than your life. But you see, if you want to go that extra mile, you have to make some sacrifices. And I think it's wrong, especially when state officials are the ones seen to be molesting journalists. For example, with Latif, the Joy News reporter, for example, he wanted to know the name of the vehicle that they were using to sprinkle the water or whatever they were doing. I mean, when you're filing a report, sometimes
all he wanted to know.
But
you and I were in there. So yeah, I'm sure that was all he wanted to know.
Sometimes to enrich your report, you need to know the names of these specific equipment that are being used. And I'm saying that we've come a long way for us to still have reports of journalists being assaulted in their line of duty. I mean, it doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't augur well for our democracy and everything. And I'm saying, what's the point in pushing for freedom of information bill to be enacted into law when journalists are assaulted anywhere? For example, the TV3 guy, I understand, he was arrested and also damned in the same vehicle as a criminal. So imagine if one of the criminals decided to attack him. What would have happened?
What was the circumstances under which he was arrested? No, he was filming outside the court. Was he able to prove he was a journalist? Okay, that one he didn't have a stack with him.
I'm saying the first response or the first attitude from a security official is not to attack. Yeah. Assuming he was not a journalist, he was a friend of the court who decided to film the suspects. Okay. You still don't have the right, even if the person is not a journalist, to attack the person. That shouldn't be your first point of action. Okay. I mean, when you want to stop somebody from doing something, you can do it in a different way.
The fact that I have right of movement doesn't mean I can climb Nanado's wall and enter his house. And if I get heckled by his security men, I'll go and complain that they are curtailing my rights of movement. Yeah. So basically, I feel like on both sides, there should be some limitations. And for me, journalism is supposed to be progressive. The press is supposed to inform and be progressive. When you do anything and you want to attach mischief or something that will divide the nation, it's wrong, basically. So I feel like sometimes, just sometimes, don't curtail the rights of the press, but then certain things must be put in place to ensure that they don't overstep, because we are human beings. When you give human beings power, they tend to abuse it, whether journalists or government official.
For me, I don't entirely agree with the assertion that once you feel your life is under threat, you abandon what you are supposed to do and then move away. We all know about the apartheid story in South Africa. It took a video or a cameraman, so to speak, to take that one single shot of the kid who was shot dead and someone holding him to tell a picture that this is what is happening in South Africa, to bring the attention of the United States, the UN, and whoever matters to the point of knowing that this is what is happening in South Africa. And that guy was not supposed to be taking the shots, because in apartheid South Africa, if he was a black man, he was working for a news channel which was predominantly black, and so he knew that he wasn't supposed to be taking it. If he was found out, he would have been killed or something worse. You get it? So he took those shots, he put the film in his socks, and then found another way of taking another film to put in the camera, to take just regular shots of just the police officers and one. So when he was confronted, he just gave them the second one, but he had the other one, which eventually led to apartheid South Africa being abolished eventually. So just find another way. If you are going this way and they say no, don't go this way, and you know that the resource person you are looking for to speak to is behind that, just find other ways of reaching the resource person, not necessarily challenging.
You are misconstruing what I said. I'm saying nobody's saying journalists shouldn't take risks. I'm saying that no story is worth more than your
But won't
life.
you be encouraging culture of docility if you keep?
No, nobody's asking you to be docile. Nobody's asking you to be docile.
If I'm told, what I'm saying is I can't take this picture and I proceed to ask why can't I? It doesn't warrant for the policeman to attack me or what. I'm saying from the analysis, you can. It's like your life is more important. So don't take the picture. That's a matter of the picture. I mean, it doesn't work like that.
My first question was, what are the circumstances?
And I'm saying, irrespective.
So let him clarify. In our profession, we have to take risks. We have to take risks every morning when we take our bath, pick our transport or vehicles and come to work. We take risks. But there is an extent to which you can go as a reporter. Like, for example,
stand-up-based incidents where he crashed the reporter. What could be the justification? Just tell me, what could be the justification?
There's no justification. And these abuses we can talk of. Okay. But what I'm saying is that you are a reporter. You are at a scene, a chaotic scene. We talk about reporting from war zones. That is a conscious decision you've made as a journalist. The Christiana Mampo, who is now in Ghana doing lifestyle stories, was there, put herself out there, knowing very well what the risks are. As we speak, there's an Al Jazeera journalist that has been incarcerated in Egypt for well over 2 years. Right? They've been pleading for him to be released. Every time there's a hearing, there's an extension. So in that circumstances, are you better off locked up or you are better off outside? So do your work, take the risk, but be cautious about your work. If there are, like Papi's mentioned, if there are ways of getting the same story without necessarily antagonizing the powers that be, do it. The bottom line is you have the story, put it out there.
Look at it. Do you trust your mother organization, GJA, to pursue, let's say, your case for you? Let's say you've been attacked.
Let me give you a specific incident before David comes in. I'm saying, when Latif was assaulted, there was an XYZ reporter was assaulted as well. When GJ issued a statement, it was specific on Latif, because Latif works for one of the biggest media houses here. And I'm saying, for a union, GJ, to act in that manner, I think it's not right. We tried speaking to an executive of GJ, and their response was that, oh, it was Latif who wrote to it. I'm saying, once you are in the media profession, you are the mouthpiece of a group of journalists. It shouldn't always be the case that people will come and report abuses to you, incidents to you. What happens to monitoring? Unless GJ wants to tell me that as GJ or as a union, they don't have any mechanism of monitoring what goes on. Because other journalists were assaulted, but you issued a statement condemning just that sort of one journalist.
And you trust GJ to carry your case for you? You know, at the MPP headquarters here in Asylum Down, a group of journalists were assaulted. TV3, Ghana Web, and then some, I think City FM or so. It was the same situation. The GJ statement didn't capture all of them. It was deficient. So
it means that those people didn't report it to GJ then?
But they don't need to report to you. Media Foundation for West Africa will not rely on the journalists to report to them that I have been assaulted. Once they hear the reports, they follow up, they do their own checks. They are able to tell that it indeed happened. Then they issue a statement to condemn it. GJ is always, well, I don't know, but they should have a way.
So
before they can capture you.
Okay. World Press Freedom Day is May 3, and you feel surprised that we are the one going to hold this event, this big event, considering that we stand in the spirit of attacks on your colleagues?
I'm not surprised. You know, these attacks have occurred, okay, but it cannot relatively, compared to other places, I think Ghana is better off. I'm not saying we should rest and then not improve things. There is always room for improvement everywhere. People call Ghana a relatively peaceful country, but we hear armed robbery attacks and everything. It does not negate the fact that Ghana is relatively peaceful, because we are comparing ourselves to Nigeria and other countries.
Let me ask this question finally. A key apparatus for us is the Right to Information Bill. It has not been passed. You know, we've had, several governments, running their lips around that. Don't you think until that is passed, we'll continue, having these attacks here and there?
Oh no, I don't think so. I think we still have a lot of overzealous police personnel wearing the uniform. For example, just last week, there was an NDC organizer or so who was picked up for for allegedly insulting the president and the like. I'm saying, there are a lot of people who want to catch the eye of their bosses, and the only way to do that is by showing that we love you more than your family members. So when someone says something that we consider, it may not be offensive, but we consider offensive, we will go at the person, we will come for you. There are so many overzealous ones there. I'm sure if you go to the police headquarters, other police officers may not or will not behave in the manner in which the others who assaulted Latif did.
These are the voices of media practitioners who are not, happy about happenings on their colleagues, and they want an end to this. And also, they are pressing for the passage of the Right to Information Bill, which of course will help in the operations. Let's know what you also think watching home. Log on to our social media platforms. On Facebook, it's News on TV3, and on Twitter, it's News TV3. Thanks for watching. Have a good morning. Right, and I'm sure you have seen the front pages this morning. Almost all the newspapers talking about very exciting stories. This morning, we took a deeper look at some of the stories, but the headlines: 3 policemen arrested in illegal arms deal with robbers. That's a story. NDC reviews Unity Walk. The Statesman has a story. Daily Guide says Dopuni assets frozen again.
Again, yes, it's not a question. The Independent says Ministry of Health signs MOU to deploy drone technology for efficient health delivery. Indum supports 8 students with 80,000 to start business. That's 80,000 cedis. That story from the Public Accounts Committee gets some space on the Today newspaper. Gomwa East blows 81,000 K on DC's funeral. Those are the stories on some of the papers I have. My guest this morning from the University of Education, Winneba, Dr. Ahmed Jinapor is here. Good morning.
Good morning, Ray.
Hope you're doing great.
Not bad.
So we're getting ready to come to Simpa for Abuachi.
Abuachi. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Interestingly, I've never witnessed it.
Oh, no, this year we'll make sure you are there. All right. And then the Member of Parliament for the Tamale North constituency is a member of the NDC. Honorable Alhaji Suyini is here. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Hope you're good. How was the U.S. protest in Tamale?
Oh, it was massive. It was beyond expectation, and I want to commend the organizers, Put Ghana First movement. I think they are doing a great job. They had a very successful lecture at the University of Ghana, Legon, that came after the demonstration in Accra. And this, I think, is their 3rd activity in Tamale, and it was massive. I also wish to commend the people of Tamale for, their show of solidarity and their patriotism, because this is about the sovereignty of Ghana, and their show of patriotism towards the need for us to safeguard our sovereignty, and to indicate to parties involved in this agreement that as a people we do not think this is going to serve us well.
I'm grateful. We'll find time to talk about it. I'm expecting a technical advisor at the office of the Vice President, Dr. Gideon Boakon, to join us. He's not yet in. Sure, he will be with us very soon. Let's start this morning's conversation. The Daily Graphic has that big story. The decision for banks to recapitalize, the central bank says it's irreversible. That's what it says. The Independent puts the story as the culture of leniency that once prevailed will not be countenanced. That's the Bank of Ghana. And it says that the culture of regulatory leniency that once prevailed in the banking sector will not be countenanced going forward. That's the Bank of Ghana talking there. Now, Second Deputy Governor, Madam Elsie Awaji, said the bank's statutory mandate, which includes the responsibility to promote the stability of the financial system and to protect the interest of depositors, is a responsibility the management of the Bank of Ghana takes very, very seriously. And so the bank said that the date is fixed, the amount is fixed, there's no going back. At that meeting, a breakfast meeting, some stakeholders also raised concerns. They talked about the fact that they are looking at lumping the banks together and saying that, hey, bring X amount. That's their concern. The story is captured in the Daily Graphic and the Independent. Let me start the conversation. Dr. Jinapor, now, the Bank of Ghana says that my doors are completely shut despite concerns. Can we still ask the Bank of Ghana to at least leave the door half open?
Well, let me say good morning to your cherished viewers. I think, as you said, the Bank of Ghana has a responsibility to ensure that there's efficiency when it comes to the management of our banks. And I'm tempted to believe that they thought through this whole policy very well before they arrived at this decision. And thinking through it means that they looked at the various options and they had technical advice. But for me, as an ordinary person, when you see a story of this sort on the front page of the Daily Graphic, it tells you that there are still some concerns relative to the ability of these banks to be able to raise that money. Because if there was no problem, I don't think people will still be asking the Bank of Ghana to reconsider that decision. That said, if the Bank of Ghana stands by what it's saying is going to do, then it means that we must brace ourselves with the ramification of such a policy in terms of if banks are not able to meet the requirement, what happens? It means they have to fold up. And if they fold up, what happens? It means people will have to lose their jobs. So I'm looking at it not just from the perspective of what needs to be done in terms of meeting the requirements, in terms of bringing efficiency, but you also have to look at the social aspect of it. Social aspect in terms of assistance today. There is evidence to the fact that there are a lot of money moving from banks because of what happened relative to the other banks that folded up. People are moving their monies from one bank to the other. There's even scientific research to the fact that people are not even investing in capital investments because you can't trust the system. And how many banks will be able to meet this particular requirement that is being put across? So I think moving forward from now till December is still some time. I wouldn't support the stance of the Bank of Ghana that it is not open to any kind of negotiation or any kind of I don't think entrenched positions is the way to go. If there's any way that this issue can be addressed and settled in a manner that you have a win-win situation, in the sense that you don't want a situation whereby most of these indigenous banks are going to fold up. In fact, how many banks are we looking at? How many of them, in terms of statistics, are able to meet the requirement, and how many are not? So let's wait and see how things shape out. And I hope and pray that at the end of the day, the overriding objective should be efficiency in the banking system, and not just efficiency, but there also needs to be confidence, and not just confidence, but I think the ordinary Ghanaian should be in a position to say that, look, I'm confident not to keep my money home, but to take it to the bank. And mind you, I think even things have improved now, but
and that's what the Bank of Ghana said. That's the only way to ensure that confidence. Get these banks to cough out that 400 million cedis by the end of the year.
No, I agree. They are looking at efficiency in terms of what their mandate is. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that when you have concerns being raised by some of these banks, it means that most of these banks are not in a position to raise that money. And if they are not in a position to raise that money, it means they are going to fold up. And if they fold up, what is going to be the consequence? The consequence is that it's going to affect the job market in terms of employment. And if there's anything that can be done, I'm not saying anything untoward, but we need to look at it not only from the technical perspective, but also from the social point of view.
I'm grateful, Dr. Jinapor. Quickly, let me introduce my third guest. I earlier had said that he is a technical advisor at the Office of the Vice President. He's a spokesperson. He speaks for the Vice President. Dr. Gideon Boakun just joined us. Good morning.
Welcome.
I hope the Vice President is good.
It's doing well.
Thanks for joining us. But I have to quickly come to you. Dr. Jinapor has just spoken about the Bank of Ghana's decision not to reverse some measures they think will go a long way to protect our banks. The bank said the 400 million cedi recapitalization is non-negotiable. The date is the end of the year, and either you cough out that money or you find your way out. But the banks are raising concerns. For instance, some have suggested, the Royal Bank is saying that there are certain banks that go into small and medium enterprises segment of the economy. They won't need that huge capital for anything. Should the Bank of Ghana still insist that we are not open to negotiation?
Thank you very much, Bright. Let me say good morning to our cherished viewers. Obviously, a straitjacket approach to this situation may not help. And so, like you said, Royal Bank is proposing there ought to be some kind of categorization and segmentation of the banking industry in Ghana, because different banks, per their structure and size, and then their mandate and also focus, have certain areas that they specify in. and some are interested in small, medium scale enterprises, while some want to do big ticket transactions. And so a minimum capitalization for all banks, one minimum capitalization for all banks, may affect some of the lower banks. They may not have the capacity to be able to do so. And so that thinking is something in order which can be considered. But generally speaking, I've listened to arguments and discussions on this whole Bank of Ghana recapitalization issue. And if you ask me, per my background, I would say that the number of banks we have in Ghana are too many for the population that we have. And so there should be some attempts and some measures to make sure that we whittle down the numbers from where it is now to a certain minimum number of banks. You don't need so many banks as a country to be able to run efficiently and support businesses. What is also critical in this point is not the plethora or the number of banks that we have in the country, but their ability to support big ticket transactions. It's quite important. And I think that is what informed the Bank of Ghana to raise the minimum capital level. Now, as we speak now, if a bank, a commercial bank, is unable to raise, let's say, 400 million Ghana cedis as the minimum capital that the bank can have, it means that the bank will not be able to do big ticket transactions. And today, the young guys who are coming and want to do business, they are not just going to the bank to ask for 10 million cedis or 5 million cedis. They are doing big stuff, which require huge sums of money. And so it means that the bank will not be able to spread their arms widely to a number of businesses that want to grow. And so there should be some attempt for the banks. For me, I think that there should be a conscious attempt for most of these banks to see the need in measure, to merge, make sure that their base is quite big and they can support big ticket transactions. Countries have done it. Nigeria, for instance, had to reduce the number of banks they had from 89 to 25. Okay, and that is how come Nigeria has been able to build strong and robust banks that are financially sound to the extent that they are creeping into other countries and dominating. If you come to Ghana, for instance, today, most of the banks we have, which are very vibrant, come from Nigeria. How did they do that? They had to reduce the number of banks they had from 89 to 25. And that is what they did. If you look at Malaysia, the minimum capital requirement for commercial banks in Malaysia was $70 million. Jump, just one straight increase. They increased it from $70 million to $549 million. And in the process, Malaysia reduced the number of commercial banks they had from 80 to 12. And that is how come today GID of Malaysia is even thinking of, acquiring certain banks in this country. So it is not the number of banks that we have. Look at the GDP of Canada. Canada has only 6 major banks as a country. Okay, Canada is bigger. The GDP, the economy is in size, is bigger than ours, but they have only 6 major banks. Okay, so we don't need so many banks as a country to run. We need fewer banks that are efficient, robust, and have adequate capital to support big ticket transactions. Today, we have so many banks in Ghana, but you can go to the bank today and say you need $40 million, $80 million to run a business. It may have to take a syndicate for you to get that. It means individual banks are unable to support such big ticket transactions. And also because of the single obligor limit, even if a bank has a capacity, he cannot lend more than 10% of its capital to one person. You understand? And so if the base is not large, the single obligor limit also limits the number of individuals who can access huge capitals from banks in this country. So there ought to be some kind of consolidation, some kind of merger, to make sure that 1, 2, 3 banks come together, merge, they put all their resources together we build, and they have a stronger base, and people can then have access to that.
And who has to trigger this? I mean, we've been talking about these measures and for quite some time. Who has to trigger this for these banks to come together?
No, you see, when central bank instigates policies, they may not necessarily come to you as the bank to say that this policy we are doing, we want to force you into measure.
Right.
But latently, the idea is built in there that you, the bank, if they have raised the minimum capital to say 400 million and you cannot get it, you quickly have to talk to a sister bank that cannot also make it. A+1 + 1, you put it together and you make 2, and you are able to make it. The other effect of this is that if the banks are unable to meet the minimum capital, and Bank of Ghana even says that we have waived it for you, and I have been told that the commercial banks which are unable to meet the minimum capital are asking for 4 years extension. For me, that is a lazy approach to the whole thing. If you cannot meet the minimum capital now, okay, you must act, and even if you are asking for some time, it shouldn't be 4 years. If you ask for 4 years, then you are blatantly telling the Bank of Ghana that you cannot do it and you won't do it. There are options and avenues for the banks to explore, and one of such options is to explore the possibility of mergers, merge with other banks. And when that option has been explored, those who cannot even make it upon merger, then we can look at categorizing the banks, category A, category B. Or these banks, we want you to meet the minimum capital because for you, we want you to do bigger transactions. Or this category of banks cannot do such big ticket transactions. So if today Honorable Suhini is going to bank to deposit money, he knows that. As for category B banks, when I take my money there and I want to do business with them, there's a limit of investment I can do with them. Okay. And this is how much I can also expect from them in terms of loans and all of that. Okay. And then we can have that understand. The other thing is that...
Wrap up for me.
Yes, if the banks are unable to do that, and the foreign banks are able to meet the minimum capital requirement, it means that in the long run, the local banks will be collapsing. In the sense that...
The accusations the government is always favoring.
No, government will never do that. In the sense that if today I have a certain idea that certain banks are unable to raise money to meet the minimum capital requirements, but others are able to do it. If I have money, I'll do business with those who are able to do that. And so in the long run, you can see that, I mean, investors are rational. Okay, we all have rational expectations, and so if I'm going to the bank to do business, I want to do business with the one
bank that certainly
is
in good.
So they should not position themselves to be seen, to be unable to do a simple act of, you know, raising the minimum capital. If you cannot do it on your own, 6 synergies. Try to link up with others and merge, and then you move on. That is what countries that have developed, that is the path they have taken. You can have a developed country with over 1,500 banks that are running as a developed country.
I'm grateful. I like to see the decision. Which way do we go? The Bank of Ghana says the doors are shut.
Well, let me say good morning once again to you and to our viewers, and good morning to my colleagues on the panel. Nice to be with you. I think that I want to take it off from where Doc left off. The fact that you have the opportunity to classify the banks, yet your mind is close to that. Classify them in such a way that, yes, like he has suggested, in such a way that you will have the banks that will deal with the big ticket items and the banks that can ordinarily support SMEs. Yet you have a very close mind as far as the approach to resolving a problem that may indeed be there, and with such intentions considered noble. Why is the solution not thought of outside the box, but within a one-size-fits-all framework? I mean, yes, we all know that our banking sector has been challenged over the period. That is why, for example, in 2009, the capital, I mean, there was some recapitalization that took place from about, I think, 60 million to 120. No, it was even lower than that, to 60 million Ghana cedis. And then in 2012, there was another recapitalization from 60 million Ghana cedis to 120 million Ghana cedis. The question you ask yourself is, have these two recapitalizations resolved the problem that we are seeking to resolve with this straight jacket solution? So if we have recapitalized on 2 occasions and the problem still exists, then perhaps I will say that it is time that we begin to think of another solution and not using a blanket solution that says recapitalize to 60 million Ghana cedis, recapitalize to 120 million Ghana cedis, and then you have this third proposal that says recapitalize by the end of year to 400. What is the guarantee that 2009, 2012, that's like 3 years. So 2012, 2018, that's like another 6 years. What is the guarantee that in 4 or 5 years' time we will not be asking the banks to recapitalize again? Because yes, the problem, the intention to solve the problem is noble. But if we have tried it on 2 occasions and the problem persists, then perhaps it's time we begin to look at other ways of resolving the problem. And to say that we have too many banks in this country, I disagree. I think that we just have too many banks concentrated in cities. We do not have too many banks in this country. A larger portion of our population remain unbanked. And that is a fact known to all. So for me, if you ask me, the question will be whether we need more banks to get more people banked, or we need less banks to get more people banked. There is no answer to that. There's no guarantee that the more banks you have, the more people you will have banking with the formal banking sector. There's no research that also shows that the less number of banks you have, the more people you will have, formally banking. But that is the major problem that we have in this country. Because we don't have many people banking, we tend to have these banks also not, raising the needed capital that they require. And people also taking facilities that could have even improved their businesses.
Do you think the banks are not too many?
We just have too many banks concentrated in about 3-4 cities. We don't have enough banks in the country. Do you get it? Yes, so
just a suggestion. What he's saying is a fact.
That they are concentrated in the cities.
The fact that you have so many banks may not necessarily translate into banking of the unbanked. And that's why these days the focus has been other measures towards financial inclusion than just the banking. In the past, we used to think that financial inclusion can only happen through the banking system.
Right.
But these days there are other avenues to get people included into the financial system.
A very important, issue has been raised also by some of the operators in the industry, to the effect that not all of them want to do big ticket items. So why compel them to raise capital they will not require? Because if they don't want to do big ticket items, it means they will not need that amount of money you want them to raise as their capital. So you are giving them a burden they otherwise will not want to carry. So what I don't like about this whole discussion or approach of government is the good cop, bad cop kind of attitude to the sector. You have a situation where the finance minister was the first person appointed by the president to announce that there will be this, directive from the Bank of Ghana. Now, the Bank of Ghana is supposed to be an independent regulator. After the finance minister's announcement, the Bank of Ghana actually follows up with a directive and insists that it is going to be at the end of the month. The end of the year. Then you have the presidency who is being petitioned, and the president pretends to want to resolve the problem and sets up a committee, but says that the work of the committee is independent of the directive of the Bank of Ghana. Why are you playing hanky-panky with these, respected, owners of very big investments in this country? The president either wants.
I see you're trying to.
The president either wants all the banks through his finance minister as announced, and also followed through by the Bank of Ghana to recapitalize as indicated, or he doesn't. He should not, in one breath, say that as president he cannot intervene. Yet he sets up a committee that I'm sure will be financed by the taxpayers' money to sit when he, together with his finance minister, working with the Bank of Ghana, seem to have already made up their mind.
The Bank of Ghana
that
says
nothing is going to influence the decision.
The Bank of Ghana says that committee's work is only to explore ways to help indigenous banks, but not to work on the directive.
So fine, but ways to help indigenous banks. Those ways, if you are having an open-minded approach, those ways could also include a request from the Bank of Ghana to extend the deadline. But the Bank of Ghana consistently says that as for this deadline, it's not moving. And you have collaboration from the finance minister, who is the president's appointee. So if you are exploring ways to help the indigenous banks, you should not close your mind that those ways will not include a request to extend the deadline for some banks. If once you make that indication, then I don't know which other way. Are you going to get some money from the consolidated fund to give them so they will meet the deadline? Certainly that cannot happen. So you should not close your mind to the possibility of requesting Bank of Ghana or making counter presentations to Bank of Ghana to convince them to perhaps amend their requirements. Yes, the Bank of Ghana is independent, but it is not intransigent. It's independent, but it's not intransigent. And so superior arguments can make them change their positions. So that's the good cop, bad cop attitude towards this industry players that I don't like.
Before I come to Dr. Buakon, Dr. Jinapo, this argument that some banks do not need the huge capital because you're interested in doing some small jobs, and so they don't need that. The second deputy governor is suggesting that that is indeed not the case, because every bank, that's according to Madam Elsie Awaji, she says that every bank, irrespective of what it does, require that so that they don't depend on liquidity from the Bank of Ghana. What do you make of that statement?
Well, I think the statement being made by the deputy governor was even reiterated by Dr. Mwakon. I must concede that I don't have that much of expertise when it comes to that area, but at the end of the day, being a Ghanaian and living within our economy, you can conclude that our economy is one that is more subsistence, in the sense that you have ordinary people looking for small money. I mean, you talk about Maslow. How much does Maslow give the ordinary trader, the taxi driver? So if we are looking at just getting banks that are interested in big boys or big business going for millions of dollars, then I think the argument will be misplaced. I mean, you're talking of planting for food and jobs. They are subsistence farmers. Somebody needs just some small loan to go and buy 2 bags of fertilizer. You know, so we definitely need those kind of institutions, whether you want to refer to them as banks or whatever it is. We need those institutions. Today, microfinance is one of the biggest, because of the nature of our economy. But I think moving forward, and I haven't heard that much being said, I mean, the indigenous banks, you are talking of UBA, Zenith, these are banks that probably got to where they are because they were given some kind of support by their government. You're talking of banks from Malaysia because they were giving support. So if these banks come here and you say it should be a level playing field, when you and I know that our banks like Unibank, Capital Bank do not have the financial muscle to be able to compete with banks like EcoBank and Unibank and UBA, then if you are not careful in future, this economy is going to be dominated by the foreign banks, and you can think of capital flight, you know. So I think in all the discussions that we are having, it goes to tell you that the window of discussion or dialogue cannot be closed, and I don't think a position being taken by the Bank of Ghana that, look, it is either you take our terms or you get out is the right way forward. As I keep saying, the most important thing when it comes to the economy is not just about money sitting in bank, but people getting jobs and money being in people's pockets. And that is why in my initial submission, I said, look, in all what we are doing, we must be mindful of the ramification, the psychological uncertainties that is going on even today. Today we are discussing this, and it's going to be discussed on almost every platform. How is it affecting the confidence of the banking system? And that is where we need to be careful. But in any case, look, even though the Bank of Ghana is an independent, autonomous body, the buck stops with the president and the government. Anything that happens, government must. Oh yeah, he has to take responsibility for it.
Okay. Let me put that question to Dr. Buakon and see. So the president has to take a decision.
Yeah, I mean, he's a leader of this country, and so there's nothing in this country that does not concern the president. I share, I mean, with my 2 senior brothers that the Bank of Ghana's approach, to some extent, can be softened to make sure that there is room for more dialogue and for proper position to be reached, but obviously not an extension for 4 years as the banks are seeking. I think that 4 years is too long a period to ask for extension to be able to raise the minimum capital level. Yes, Honorable Suhini talked about the fact that the president is trying to intervene, and he thinks that the Bank of Ghana is autonomous, and there's kind of double standardness here when the president says that I want you to do your work as autonomous as possible, but the finance minister comes and don't forget that the finance minister is a key player in the financial sector of this country. And also, government policies inform the Bank of Ghana's policies, especially the monetary policy setting. And so whatever happens at the real sector and the economy in general from government have, you know, consequential effects.
I don't think, maybe if I could just help you, I don't think you understood me.
No, I'm coming to your point. I'm coming to the point that you said.
Okay, you see,
I understood you well.
The point, if you just let me help, okay. The point I made is not about Bank of Ghana being autonomous and then finance minister interfering. The point I made is what I see to be double talk. Yes, the Bank of Ghana is autonomous, is independent. Right. But I am also saying that if that is the case, why do we get an impression from the finance minister sometimes that through the fact that he was the first to announce this, that they work together, he can intervene, he can influence what they say, and that's what he also said. Government financial decisions will definitely be in consultation with the Bank of Ghana. Then the president also acts like, I don't know what Bank of Ghana is doing. This is a committee I have set up to take a look at it. Is that not legitimate?
The finance minister, if you read the 2017 budget as was read in March, this minimum capitalization issue was mentioned in the budget. I mean, I was part of the team that prepared the budget. We talked about the minimum capital requirement for the banks. It is not out of place for a finance minister of a country to have that thinking, because the finance minister also has the financial services division that is in charge of these financial services, banks and all of that. This is not the first time that the Bank of Ghana has decided to raise the minimum capital requirement level, and the president has intervened. In fact, during President Kufuor's time, when such a decision was made, the banks petitioned President Kufuor, and President Kufuor at the time invited the bank. There is no way the president will say that I've received a petition and I will attend to the petition. These are Ghanaian banks, people of high repute who have been able to build a bank. They petitioned the president. President Kufuor invited the banks, the Bank of Ghana and the interested parties, and they sat down to Jojo. Similarly, in this case, President Akufo-Addo was petitioned by the banks. And the president, upon receiving the petition, decided to attend to the petition respectfully as mandated of him. And the president called for a meeting with the banks and set up a committee. Out of the discussion, it is not the president taking an ex-cathedral power to say that I'm setting up a committee. The discussions, deliberations at the meeting ended that there ought to be a committee, and that was in agreement with all parties, and the banks agreed that let's set up this committee. And this committee is not set up outside the banks which petitioned the president. They are part of the committee, and the committee is supposed to go through it to see, ostensibly, what government and the Bank of Ghana can do to make sure that the local banks are brought up to a level that they can be on their feet. Not necessarily on this minimum capital issue. Okay. And so we need to understand that thing. On the issue of bank liquidity,
quickly, if you can give me the
we need bigger banks. You see, we use the fact that we need banks to have higher capital to support big ticket transactions as the base, because we can't go and talk of the floor whilst the cap is there. You understand? So we said that you must have capital. Look, you can be doing SME businesses, but it depends on the number which move to your bank to demand for money. If you are supporting smaller businesses and thousands of them come to your bank a day, and you are unable to give them one cedi, it means you don't have the capital. So you need to have a certain minimum capital, such that even if it is one person which is coming for huge sums of money, or hundreds of people which are coming for smaller money, you'll be able to satisfy that. I don't know, this is the essence of banks. Doc was talking about the need and the essence for velocity of money. Money ought to change hands so frequently. There should be some level of higher velocity in the system. If the velocity is low, it means that liquidity levels are down. And when liquidity levels are down, once I go to the bank, I don't get the money. You don't get and therefore, I'm unable to use it for businesses, and therefore cannot also pass on to the ordinary people. So it makes sense for banks to have some level minimum capital. And this is not the first time that the Bank of Ghana is raising. But of course, the discussion that I see on this suggests that there ought to be some kind of further deliberations and thinking through this. Personally, I do not support the fact that the Bank of Ghana says that take it or break. Okay. I mean, they can give them some time.
I guess you've made that
through
point.
this.
I'm grateful, Dr. Wako. Let's jump to the Finder this morning. Some figures on the front page of Finder. Mahama 39.5, Kufuor 33, Nanado 10, and Professor Mills 4%. The story is suggesting that data on the annual report to Parliament on presidential office staff positions to increase in numbers between 4 and 33% in the Fourth Republic. Now, 2017 report says 10% increase over 2016. That's how the Finder puts it. The data shows that 998, even though the Finder put the figure at 988 staff. The list submitted to Parliament by President Nana Akufo-Addo, covering the year 2017, represent a 10% increase over the list of 892 by ex-President John Mahama, but was not presented to Parliament because he lost the elections. That's what the Finder says. Now, 2016 report is 26% increase over 2014. 2014 report is 4.7% increase over 2013. 2013 report is 6.1% increase over 2010. And so the story is suggesting that from Professor Mills to President Kufuor to President Mahama to Nanato, the figures are there. President Mahama, ex-President Mahama, increased his staff by 39.5%. President Kufuor increased his by 33%. Professor Mills increased his by 4%. Nanato increased his by 10%. That's a story put out there by Elvis Darkon this morning, the Finder. Dr. Jinapo, this is a fallout from the presidential staff issue. Now, we're being told that these are the figures. Do we really need to be worried about how much the increases are, or we should focus our attention on what we're getting from the numbers, whether large or small?
Well, I think it's a very interesting story and an interesting twist to the debate that has engulfed this whole presidential staffers issue. I would have wished that this study that is being done, I don't know whether it's an empirical study or
so they picked their report from Parliament.
Yeah, I mean, we needed to know the referencing of the sources, in the sense that one of the biggest issues that I think we have, and emanating from this whole brouhaha, is the lack of data. Lack of data. And I find it very, very worrying, especially when we are looking at the apex of governance in this country, the presidency. We don't even know how many staffers President Mahama left and how many President Nanato has as it stands now. If you listen to which side of the aisle that the argument is coming from, the NDC says they had 600 and something. Today, the Finder is saying 892. In fact, the Finder story even pegs the figure for President Nanato at 988.
Right.
When the figure that is being bundled around is 998. So there's a lot of inconsistency. A lot of inconsistency. And I find it extremely appalling that we don't even have official data of how many people work at the presidency, who is a public servant or a civil servant, and who was appointed by what? By the coming administration as maybe a political appointee. That is the first problem that I find. And if today, Bright, you come to my university and we have ghost names, why would you blame the system? Because that is the kind of system that we are running. That notwithstanding, I think, like it or hate it, there's an increment in terms of what? The staff. Today, as it stands, we are talking of somewhere around 900. Somewhere around 900. And that is definitely an increment over the previous administration. What I also find interesting is the debate has always revolved around the number of people and how much money is being spent. We are being told that President Mahama had about 800 and something staffers, and he spent about some 6 billion Today, Nanado has about 900 and something, and he spent about 1.5 billion. Then I asked myself, the 1.5 billion vis-a-vis the 6 billion, is it salary for the workers? It's not salary for the workers. These are money being used for what? For projects. So we need to know how much these individuals are being paid, how much is being spent on them, what is the total budget in terms of what? Remuneration. And that needs to be juxtaposed with what? Productivity. Productivity. And I think it's about time as a country we sit down seriously and think through how many people always need to be appointed. Because, look, today we are talking of more or less resourcing and putting the private sector into a place of efficiency. So if this is what is being proposed, and ironically, it looks as if the public sector, it's more or less being overburdened with staff, then it becomes what? It becomes problematic. So I think this provides us an opportunity. I've heard people say there needs to be a legislation, more or less capping how many people can be appointed by the president. But I think the first thing that needs to be done is we need to have official data, proper auditing system of who works at the presidency or who works anywhere. I quite remember not too long ago under President Mahamad's regime, we had something called biometric registration, where every worker was registered, was just for the purposes of payment. Are these people biometrically registered? I mean, do we have official letters of appointments? If there are official letters of appointment, how come we cannot get official data of these, the number of people who have been employed? So the issue of the percentage of increments, I don't think it's something that is worthy of any sort of analysis, because I mean, the data did not even go as far as Rawlings. We started from the Fourth Republic. We are talking of the Rawlings regime. It didn't get to that level. It's not about how many people are being appointed or what the total number of increments, but we're looking at productivity. How many people are appointed and what is the end result in terms of the appointments?
I'm grateful. Alhaji, the story is suggesting that Mr. Mahama increased the staff by 39.5%. and Nanado has only done 10%. Trying to suggest that the whole commentary on the thing is needless.
Well, it's very difficult to defend the indefensible. No matter how the NPP turns this, it's still going to amount to a total cheat. I mean, it is not about whether we have verifiable data or not. It's about the penchant of some people to just do propaganda. And in the process of that propaganda, they throw out figures that obfuscate the true figures. Because we know that this is a constitutional requirement. And in today's media or research, finding information is not difficult. Even if you cannot have access to the official sources, just Google or use any search engine on the internet. And you will know the number of people that President Mahama presented to Parliament over the years. And you will know what the MPP said about those figures. It wasn't about those figures being less than 998. No. It was just about those figures being 600 or 700 or whatever they want to call it, and simply saying it was high and amounted to low productivity. So the latest introduction of, oh, we just increased by 5% doesn't even make sense to me. Because the argument was that whatever President Mahama presented was too high and amounted to waste of public purse. So even if you maintain President Mahama's figures, you would have still been a disappointment. You would have still been a disappointment even if you maintain President Mahama's figures, because you criticize those figures. So what is this fuss about trying to confuse the whole discussion by throwing out numbers there? The point is that, did you think 678 was too high and led to a rape of the public purse? Did you think that 700 staffers was too high? Did you think 800 was too high? Did it matter their level of productivity? Was that the argument then? Or the simple or mere fact that this was thrown out there made you so angry to the point that you thought this was an incompetent government? So why are you shifting the goalposts? Why are you trying to deceive people? What we do know is that 998 names have been presented so far. And the finder, in its attempt to even do the propaganda, reduces it to 988. That should tell you that it is a paper or an analysis that you cannot even place value on. The fascination to
have been a typo.
Yeah, but there is that. It's not the only error in it. It talks about even the list also being prepared by President Mahama but not presented, because you see, they know that if they indicate that it was presented to a particular source, say Parliament, you check in Parliament and they will be exposed. So the writer says it was prepared by President Mahama and he saw it in President Mahama's wardrobe. I mean, what is that fascination to heap everything wrong about this country on that poor man, John Mahama? Why? I mean, let's face the facts. I have heard also the the information minister threw out figures there that was also published by the Daily Guide. Complete falsehood. Complete falsehood, because we have data that in some cases they themselves as a government have submitted. You can find that in the 2017 budget that was presented by the finance minister. You can find that in a report that was presented to the finance committee on March 20th, 2017 by the Deputy Chief of Staff, Samuel Abujinapo. You can find that also on page 63, section 38 of the finance committee report 2017. They quoted the figures, the amount of money that was allocated and utilized by the Office of Government Machinery in 2015-2016. It is in their own documents, and none is above 719 million. None is above 719 million. All these documents have quoted, and they presented it to Parliament. Yet you have the finance minister and the mouthpiece of the MPP Daily Guide deceiving the people that even with the less number of staffers that President Mahama had, he spent about 3 billion. Complete falsehood. Complete. That is not supported by any verifiable data. And as a minority, we have challenged them to look into their own budgetary statement, the budget statement of 2017, and tell us what number they put there has been utilized. I mean, the amount of money that was sent. And again, like I have indicated, and the Chief of Staff, the Deputy Chief of Staff, is not dead. He's alive. We have given the date, 20th March 2017, when he appeared. How much did he say was allocated and utilized by the Office of Government Machinery? So this attempt to share the shame, because it is embarrassing, and the people of Ghana who had a lot of hope in the NPP are shocked by these numbers. And so with that embarrassment, there is an attempt to share the embarrassment. But please, it is your monkey. Carry it. It is your monkey, and it is not done in isolation. We already know that you have unprecedentedly increased our number of ministers. You have done that. The biggest ever in the history of this country, 110. Again, you have set a record of forming 3 development authorities and appointing 17 CEOs. 17 CEOs to 3 different authorities. Just 3, 17 CEOs. So when they include oh yes, there is
deputies. Okay.
Well, but they are CEOs.
Okay, all right.
Whether they are CEOs or they are deputy CEOs, they are CEOs.
All right.
We have 110 ministers. Whether they are ministers or deputies, they are ministers of state. So there are 17 CEOs to 3 authorities. Apart from even the amorphous creations that have been done at various established institutions like SNITS, like SIC, like National Health Insurance, all kinds of managers and directors created. So indeed, the job creation is happening.
We should not think
the
about
only
the
disadvantage
job
is that
doing. The claim is that
You see, the question, Bright, is the job they are doing today, were those jobs not done better in the past? In the past, we had just 2 transport ministers. Yet we had railways being constructed. We had airports being revamped and constructed. Today, you have about 5 transport ministers. Tell me, in fact, STC was revamped. Metro Mass had new buses. 1 year, 15 months. You have 5 ministers in the transport sector. You have the transport ministry, you now have the aviation. Tell me, what is there to boast? What can they boast of? But with the 2 transport ministers, I can tell you about the Tamale Airport. I can tell you about the Terminal 3 that is coming up. I can tell you about the expansion in the Kumasi Airport. I can tell you about the new buses that STC got. I can tell you about the Metro Mass. So when you tell us numbers should not matter, but we should look at productivity, even in that argument, you fall flat.
Okay. Dr. Boakun, so it's interesting. Should we be thinking about the number of people each president added, or perhaps we should look at what is being talked about, what they are going to do, what they are doing, the productivity level?
Yeah, right, I'm worried. And I'm worried in the sense that as a young guy, Ghana is growing to a point where almost every talk is simply characterized by cheap politicking. And if we don't graduate from that level, I'm afraid we may not be able to get to where we want to get to as a country.
How do you mean?
If we would sit down and allow everything to be politicized out of propaganda, hypocrisy, lack of knowledge, Ghana will face doom. Because this whole thing, like Honorable Suhini used to talk about, NDC, MPP, President Mills, President Mahama, there hasn't been any government since 1992 that has not appointed people to add on to the existing public and civil servants who work at the presidency. And today, like Dr. Dajinapo alluded to, there has been an interesting twist to this whole brouhaha in this newspaper, where analysis have been done and percentages computed to indicate by how much certain presidents increase the staffers at the presidency. And it's obviously clear that the person who has passed in these exams, per these statistics, and doing well, is Professor Mills. Then followed by Nana Akufo-Addo. In fact, the worst of all is President Mahama.
I told you. There's that fascination to keep everything wrong in this country on that also.
I like data a lot, and I believe in statistics. You see? So per this analysis, it tells you blatantly that the person who did worse in terms of increasing the number, if increasing the number is a monstrous act, then President Mahama did worse because he increased what he made by 39.5%, roughly 40%.
Like
Please, you see, we shouldn't go towards that line. Since this whole thing started,
not because you said what President Mahama had. Is this too many?
You see, that is why I'm saying that.
Questioning how many you have.
That is why I'm saying that the depoliticization will be the most thing for us to focus on.
How do we depoliticize?
Because if Honorable Suyene says here today, tomorrow MPP goes to opposition and they do the same thing to them, I don't think that is proper. Even when the whole thing started, we were made to believe that the 900 and something people, all of them, okay, are habiting or they are inside the Flaster house. And they go to work.
Who did that?
Oh, I mean, that's the commentary you guys were running.
No.
That
no.
Flaster House is hosting.
Because you did that to President Mahama.
Jubilee House is hosting 900 people.
You did that to President Mahama, so you just know who did that.
At the office of the presidency, so many things go to. You go to the State House, around the State House area. You know, the Blue House, and those. There are people there who work under the office of the presidency. There are ministries which have people working there who work on the office of the presidency. And there are people who are originally inside that house. Honorable Sweeney was talking about directors, and I'm coming.
Your point is that the numbers.
We should focus on productivity. That is the most important thing. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, what is the contribution of these people towards the development of this country?
What is it now?
Are they performing
18
well?
18 months in office. What can you say is the productivity?
Exactly. That is the point, and that is where the argument must focus. That is why I want to challenge you, the media, to interrogate that the 876 people that President Mahama had that they thought was okay.
That is not on record anywhere.
And they were not. They were not wasting. They were not wasting the public. This is record.
Where is it?
Records of Parliament. I can show you. It is here. This is in the records of Parliament. I mean, you don't have to dispute this. You are a member of Parliament. You know this. Okay.
I don't know it.
You know this.
It's only in your heads.
Even with that number that you consider to be small, you cancel teacher trainee allowances. With 900 plus that you consider to be big, we have paid the teacher trainee allowances. With your smaller number relatively, you cancel nursing trainee allowances. The government that has employed the number that you say is large has paid nursing trainee allowances. With your number that you consider to be relatively small, the CD was depreciated. Today, we have a stable currency. Tell me the CD is not stable now. You plunge us into doom so with your smaller number. We have solved the problem of doom so. You know, with the number that relatively consider to be smaller.
Taking that false.
You shrank the size of this economy. You reduce the size of this economy, GDP of this economy to 3.7% within 1 year. With 900 and something number that you consider to be big, our economy has grown from 3.7 to 8.5, more than doubling what you met. So productivity should be the essence and the focus for discussion,
and not
on
the
this.
number.
It is not the number.
Let me give you the last one. And then we'll wrap up.
I like Doug's recitation, but here's a quick one. You see, on teacher training allowance, all I want to say is that the NPP works to win the next election. The NDC works to build a nation.
So you cancel the allowances to build a nation?
Let's give the last word on this and then we'll move on.
Well, I think it's interesting, and definitely it will always take the political dimension. But I think at the end of the day, the good people of this country are the people who are going to judge whether 998 is bringing about productivity or not. As Rollins always say, it should reflect in your pocket.
I'm grateful. He's a lecturer at the University of Education, Winneba, Dr. Ahmed Jinapor, the Member of Parliament for the Tamale North constituency, a member of the NDC, Honorable Alhaji Suhini, was also here. The spokesperson of the Vice President, Dr. Idian Buakon, was my third guest. Gentlemen, grateful for a Wednesday morning with me. And those of you who send the comments, we're also grateful you did. We're reading them as soon as we see how Liverpool did not walk alone after beating Roma 5-3. Stay with us. Sports is coming up next.
Welcome back. You're here on TV3 New Day. So 25th April 2018 is marking World Malaria Day. And we're going to be talking about it, to see how far Ghana has come with the fight against malaria. Of course, we've spoken about it many times, but are you happy with the result you are seeing out there? So many people are still dying of malaria, but I hear the statistics seem to be improving. So I'm going to be getting the details from Dr. Kezia Mam. She is the program manager for the National Malaria Control Program. Good morning, Dr. Mao.
Good morning.
And welcome to TV3 New Day.
Thank you very much.
So, I mean, when we talk about malaria, it's not that no one has heard about it. We have. But can you tell us the trend? At least last year we celebrated World Malaria Day. So we're looking at the trend from at least last year up until now. Is it worth talking about?
Indeed, it's worth talking about malaria for a number of reasons. One, we are making progress. Two, malaria is preventable and treatable. And three, if you don't do something about it, it can't kill you. So it's worth talking about malaria. Looking at the statistics, last year we recorded about 600 deaths in our health facilities, and this is a great improvement. In the 2000s, we're talking about 6,000 deaths. Even the year just before, we recorded about 1,002 deaths in our health facilities. So we are gradually working towards a point, like the president said, where no one dies of malaria, because it is treatable we have the medicines to cure you of malaria if you unfortunately have it. One of the challenges we have is people don't get to the health facilities early enough to get treatment. They get there very, very sick with anemia, and it's usually too late to prevent them from dying. But we are getting somewhere, and it is worth talking about it.
Very well. So can you also tell us, I mean, the education seems to be ongoing. Every year we hear these, you know, programs are rolled out, people are talking about malaria, but what are some of the limitations you face when you go on the ground to actually educate people about malaria?
Some of the limitations we face has to do with changing behavior. In curtailing malaria, in preventing malaria, it depends a lot on individuals. So apart from what the institutions can do, for example, getting the ITNs into the insecticide-treated nets into the country and distributing, it becomes effective only when someone uses it. So getting people to use these interventions, which have been shown to be effective, as a major challenge. We've made progress, but I think we could do better. And so if people keep saying that it's hot, but even if it's hot, during the rainy seasons when we have the malaria the highest, it is not as, it's not that hot. So we entreat people to sleep in the nets so you don't get sick. You can sleep in the net in your birthday suit so you don't get sick. So that is our major challenge. Some of the challenges we are still addressing, we're still looking for new interventions to add on to what we have, because the malaria parasite and the mosquito, they are all smart. So they keep changing. So we also need to keep advancing, and that's
okay. So tell us the theme for this year, and I'm also interested in finding out what new thing the control program plans to add on in the fight against malaria.
So this year's theme is ready to beat malaria. So we really need to put our hands on deck to beat malaria, and we believe it's doable. If less and less number of people are dying now, we should get to a point no one dies. Then we should get to a point where the infection is really, really down. What is coming up new, I'm sure you've heard about it, is the malaria vaccine that we intend to pilot together with other agencies there. It's going to go through the immunization schedule. So it's the expanded program on immunization that's handling it. But we had some successes with the malaria vaccine that was tried. It is now the vaccine that is leading. It's the only vaccine that has come to this stage. So we are piloting it in some selected areas to learn lessons, to look at the feasibility, the impacts when it's in the routine service, and also learn more about the safety issues when it's in the routine service. And then eventually we'll take a decision whether we'll roll it out nationwide or would have another option. So that's what it's coming.
It's rather unfortunate, but when it comes to our part of the world, it seems the majority of us are prompted to do something actively about malaria only when they know the complications. So can you just run us through some of the, complications of malaria?
Okay, so malaria, if you don't treat it, can result in severe malaria. And severe malaria, it can have cerebral malaria. It can affect basically every organ in your system. And you can shut down. I think the greatest complication is death. But if you don't die, there are some children who unfortunately are suffering from effects of malaria they had in their childhood because they had severe malaria which wasn't treated well or early. And sometimes it even affects their cognitive function. Okay, so it affects their ability to think and do well in school. Yes, and it can affect your kidney. The malaria parasite basically lives in your blood cells, so it results in a lot of breakdown of your blood cells. So anemia is number one, and it can lead to death, death. But it is preventable and it is treatable.
So what advice do you have to us out there, at least the little we can do to help beat malaria in this year?
Okay, so the first thing I'll say is that if you happen to feel that you have malaria, we all know we have malaria. Everybody feels they have malaria. So if you feel you have malaria by when you experience some symptoms, let's say headache, fever, please get tested to be sure it's malaria, because there are other diseases which may present as malaria, and you may miss treating those diseases and die from those diseases, and you would think you had died from malaria. There are the second thing now, so there are interventions currently which are working. Use your insecticide-treated nets. Pregnant women should get their treatment at health facilities. So you go to the antenatal clinic early. You can also use what we call the indoor residual spraying, where we spray the walls, and there are people trained to do this. The other thing we can do in our own small ways to avoid having breeding sites around our area. So gutters that can be cleared should be cleared around your home, so water doesn't stagnate yes, in your gutter. Pools and puddles around our houses should also be cleared, so that the mosquitoes which transmit malaria are reduced.
Well, maybe finally, just to wrap up, I would like you to talk about using the, insecticides or the sprays, because recently we've had an issue where some people died from using a wrong pesticide in their homes. So could you advise us, because right now everyone wants to kill mosquitoes and they're using all manner of sprays to do so, but in the fight against malaria, what is the best way to use it?
What we provide, what we promote, and that's what has been recommended by the World Health Organization, is to use indoor residual spraying. So this is done on the walls. So the insecticide is sprayed on the walls of the houses. And it stays there. Some are effective for 3 months, some are effective for 6 months. Unfortunately, as individuals, we may not be in the best position to do it ourselves, because even the way you spray it is a technique, such that you don't miss any small spots where the mosquito can identify and rest. So there are people trained to do that. In the northern part of the country, in Upper West and parts of Upper East and Northern region, they are done for free with our partner institutions. Down in the southern part, they are private companies, which if you want, we can always direct you. If I mention people's names, I may be promoting others, but there are people who are trained to do this. So get these people, get them to spray your walls in the households, and then you can stay mosquito-free for quite a long time in your homes.
Very well. So I think what we'll need you to do is mention how we can contact the malaria control program if we need help for the indoor residual spraying and other interventions.
Unfortunately, I didn't bring the numbers off my head, but we can leave it with you, and then later you can show it, and then people can get in touch. We can even get contact of all these people. I want to be fair, so I'll get all those we have available, then those can be floated for people to contact.
So for today, the program, what is it like? Where would we be?
Today, what we are doing for the World Malaria Day is to reach out to the people in Ashiaman. So we are not going to have long speeches and things like that. So we are setting up to reach out to the people in Ashiaman market and anybody who can get there, giving them insecticide-treated nets, taking care of people who are sick. So we've got doctors, nurses, we'll be doing screening. If you have malaria, you are treated. If you have other diseases, that we have the medicines that will treat you or refer you. Even to the extent that we are screening for hypertension and diabetes, because we want to use the opportunity. So that's what that's what we are doing today to climax the World Malaria.
Very well, and you heard it right from Dr. Kezia Maum. She's the program manager for the National Malaria Control Program, because this year we are beating malaria. You and I have a role to play, so let's make sure we do that. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more here on New Day.
Wednesday, we promised you about the much-awaited conversation. We want to talk about the essence of tertiary education, but my guest this morning is the very accomplished scholar and a very proud Ghanaian, a past student of Nandom Secondary School. He also is an APSU, a very proud one. In 1991, he won the Head of State Award. Fast forward to 2008, his U.S. Black Engineer of the Year, Most Promising Scientist Award. He won that as well. And he has, to his credit, 22 patents being used currently in the United States, also part of the technical committee headed by the Minister for Science, Innovation and Technology, and currently is a provost and president of this academic city college in Accra. My guest this morning is a proud Ghanaian, Professor Fred Baganuri. Chief, good morning. How are you doing? We look like twins this morning.
I'm telling you.
I wanted to pick a blue-black blazer, and I thought most professors would do blue-black blazers, so I decided to pick something like this. And here you come in a similar thing.
Well, I also started off looking at blue, and then I said maybe for TV lights, the contrast would be better with a little color.
Right. And so here we are. How are you doing these days, Prof?
Not too bad, not too bad. You know, really busy trying to shift the goalposts for Academic City College.
Right. You've lived in both worlds, in Africa and in the West as well. Yeah. What does our educational system here tell you? Does it train people to live for life as it does elsewhere?
Yeah. So I think the interesting thing overall is that when you look globally, we're not doing too bad with the academic system that we have. The same academic system had produced the likes of Professor Victor Lawrence, a very, very prominent Ghanaian scientist. Oseyo Asare, one of my favorite Ghanaian scientists of all times.
Right.
And so it has done its part. The challenge is it still relevant for the times?
You tell me.
Is it creative enough for the times? Well, I don't think so. I think we're globally behind. Obviously, in many parts of the world, it's not just about great brain power,
right?
But it's also about offering an educational system that allows creativity to foster, that allows people to create things, undo them, and put them together. An educational system that essentially allows people to unlearn and relearn in a very, very dynamic ecosystem. I think that is what we are missing. It's still too conservative. It's still too old-fashioned.
Whose job is it to know? I mean, because people are applying to go to schools to be formed and to be trained for life.
Yes.
It is therefore not the students' duty, first of all, to couch their curriculum. There's a national accreditation board that decides. So who must lead the charge?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. The National Accreditation Board definitely can help shape some of these dynamics. What tends to happen is they stick with what they know, which is the old system that we have. Sometimes if you try to introduce new things, you face challenges because people don't really know what it is.
Right.
I think it's time for us to really look outside. Look at a small country like Rwanda that came out of war not too long ago.
Exactly, 94.
And they are boasting of some of the best universities in the world. They are boasting of technological integration into the agricultural sector. It's just amazing what Rwanda is doing. And for an innovator myself, sometimes when I read about Rwanda, I itch. Is it that we can't see that? Is it that we don't think that is good enough for us? Is it that we're afraid to experiment? After all, man has been experimenting throughout history.
Right.
When man transitioned from intuition, from superstition, from religion to science, man has been experimenting and trying to figure things out. And I think an educational system that is dynamic, that is evolving, that is in tune with the times is really what we're missing.
Does the National Accreditation Board, the Ministry of Education, the Ghana Education, do they realize this problem you're mirroring to us this morning?
I have no doubt that they do. I mean, most of the people that run this country go abroad all the time.
So what's keeping them from implementing anything close to what's out there?
It's inertia. It's inertia. The inertia that attempting to change things in a dynamic way would disrupt the establishment sometimes can be very daunting, and people tend to stay comfortable with what they know. It's conservatism.
So there's a regular student who, you're also a founding dean of engineering at the Ashesi University, and now you're president and provost of the Academic City College in Accra.
Yes, sir.
So I'm looking at both schools, and it tends to churn out a different kind of graduate as opposed to the regulars that we have.
That's correct.
What is the trick so that if I go and do communication studies, for example, at the GIJ, I can compete efficiently and effectively with somebody who does same at Academic City or Ashesi, and you will not see the lapses and the flaws?
That's correct. So I think the can-do spirit is key.
Right.
A strong liberal arts foundation that allows the kids to learn excellent communication skills, to learn how to work in a team environment, to understand the value of ethics, to understand the value of entrepreneurial thinking. I think it's very, very key. I mean, when I taught engineering at Ashesi University, one of the things that was always obvious was that besides impacting knowledge on these kids, they also needed an environment where they needed to feel comfortable. You know, kids have come from villages, kids have come from Kenya, Uganda. They are missing that protective environment of family. And so you're just more than a teacher. You're also a figure that they are looking forward to. Is that the person that I want to emulate? Is that the person that I can really learn something that I can go into society and apply? Is that somebody that has accomplished what they're actually talking about? You know, talking about it is one thing, but have they done it?
Have they done it before?
And that was very important to these children.
So then the instructors must have lived what they are teaching the children or the students.
I mean, if you haven't lived it, how do you deliver it?
The schools are springing up everywhere. I mean, we have what we call the university colleges now. They're springing up everywhere and any and every day.
That's correct.
And yet, the quality of people who get into the marketplace are not employable.
Yes.
Are we losing it? The relevance of tertiary education, for example.
So, you know, one of the myths that I continuously hear in the discourse on higher education is the notion that universities are not supposed to impact skills, that they are supposed to give you access to some fundamentals and that you go into society itself and build it. And that's a very wrong notion. You know, when you want to have an effective educational system, you have to look at what your needs are. It has to be reconfigured to your own reality. And our reality is that, unlike in the United States, we don't have these major industries where students go on internships and get that knowledge set that we think universities should not offer. So now, in the absence of that, employers are looking for students, graduates, who will come in, plug and play directly. And that's not what our educational system is providing.
They're looking for work experience.
They're looking for work experience.
Where do they get it from?
Exactly. So now it rests on the universities to create programs where kids get access to this. So they have to be able to get access to the analytics, which is the fundamental basis of the knowledge itself. They need to have access to a simulation environment. They need to have access to experimentation. They need to have access to construction. And they need to have access to internship. And it is this combination that is going to differentiate us from our neighbors and help us play in the global
Over the
arena.
last 10 years, the issue of entrepreneurship has been big, front burner. Most of the universities have it as part of their modules, academic programming. But you find very few entrepreneurs. What's the problem? Are they not being taught right, or are they not applying what they're being taught? What is it?
So, you know, when you meet entrepreneurs in Ghana, the first thing they will tell you is that we don't have the money to develop our ideas. But it's often not about the money. It's always, do you have a great idea? Do you have a sellable idea? How did you package your idea? Are you able to find the right people to present your ideas to? So entrepreneurship for the sake of entrepreneurship will not take us far. We need to understand that whole ecosystem, right, that allows ideas to flourish, which means that we need angel investors, we need programs that help students transition, you know, from the academic setting. If the schools cannot provide everything they need to be successful, there should be a place where they can go. We should have entrepreneurial centers, whether by philanthropists or by government, where people can actually go and learn these things. And you know, until we actually realize that by supporting these kids to start new enterprises, the economy will not flourish, and therefore it's not money wasted. That is actually an investment in the future. It will be very difficult for us to see results. We'll just teach entrepreneurship the same way that we've taught other courses in the last 60 years.
The Vice President recently was talking about the use of technology. Because you're an engineer, I want to draw that in. Using drones in the healthcare delivery system. We've been drumming it home, and we have a specific ministry now for science, innovation, and technology. What do you think of what the Vice President said, using drones for healthcare?
So, you know, I don't want to get a little political.
It's not political. But you're an engineer. Tell me about it. You work with drones and all of that.
The challenges that we usually have is, what exactly do we want to be like when we grow up? You know, just pointing at technologies, a series of discrete events that we hope somehow miraculously will form a system.
Right.
It's not the right approach.
Okay.
You know, I've heard about drones being used for policing. And I ask myself, what problem do we really want to solve with the technology? Because technology is supposed to be there to solve problems.
Right.
Right? So what exactly do we want to do with the drones? Okay, we want to deliver blood with it to remote areas.
Okay.
How are we delivering the blood today?
Right.
It has to be cost effective. You know, just jumping on technology for the sake of technology oftentimes end up causing more problems.
What do you see in this particular case? You have worked in both worlds.
Yeah.
You have 22 patents in your name.
That's right.
This drone in medicine, what do you see?
I think it's...
What is the reality?
I think the reality is that it has a place. It has a place for remote areas that are inaccessible. It has a place for accident sites that is far away from the nearest hospitals where you need this kind of... So there is a place for it. What I really want to see is what is the framework within which this solution is meaningful.
Right. That's what you want to see.
Exactly.
So that, for example, we have a lot of graduates, 998 of them working at the presidency.
Yeah.
They say little is more and more is little. You want to take a bite?
Well, you know, I don't think we need more people. I think we need more results. And sometimes, you know, just because you have more people thrown at a problem doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting optimum solution.
Prof, I thank you very much for your time. Admissions are ongoing at the Academic City College, right?
Yes.
And you're training a different kind of leaders.
We are doing that.
I thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate
and I wish you all the best in
Thank
your
you.
endeavor. Pleased to have met you. That's Professor Fred Mark Bagunlori. He's a provost and president of the Academic City College here in Accra. He's also the owner of 22 different patents that's used currently in the USA. He's the 2008 Black Engineer of the Year in the United States. Plus, he won the Head of States Awards in 1991, so he has a bragging right as well. And is a very proud old student of Nandom and an APSU. I'm not so happy saying APSU, but it's okay. Don't worry. We'll be back after this break.
I do feel blessed. And good morning out there to Justina Owusu. She's my favorite nurse, as I always say, but there are many others. I know she's off duty today, so I'm wishing her a good day. The rest of you are at work, and so you may not hear
Of course. And this is your birthday today. Happy birthday to you. To our own brother, Moro.
Yeah, today's Moro's birthday.
40. Yes. I hope you have not missed the boat at 40.
The man in charge of a class morning.
Yeah, Moro will do. One of our very own. It's happy birthday to you. But this is something I found on Tramadol.
Right.
The side effects: dizziness, drowsiness, insomnia, headache, nervousness, agitation, plenty things.
It goes to show it touches every system in the body.
I wonder why people take it, though, and I hope that we don't pay lip service to it, because it affects your hands, feet, ankles, lower legs, swelling, vomiting, heartburn, seizure, tremor, everything. Once you take it, you start dying slowly.
Jimmy, again, let's use this to mention the video that's circulating of some young girls who are smoking
Two children
weed.
smoking.
Young female ladies smoking weed. And they seem to have been at it for quite some time. I'm wondering whether the parental controls are being lost, or it's just the ignorance. I don't know.
Okay, and this is also something I found. This is noodles with wele. I'm wondering where this comes from. Right. You have noodles with wele.
Would be very nice.
Noodles with
I mean, we've modernized
very nice.
what the Western
this
people
like wele
started.
chops.
Like
noodles.
Instead of having your shrimps
watch sellers who chop the wele when they give it to you. They don't give it to you in that long
So you like it like that?
Yeah, I like it.
And this is what Tilapia had to say about the Vice President. One hospital, one drone, distributing medicines to the hinterlands. That's it there.
So the medicines are being distributed.
But why is Dr. Baumia sitting on the drone?
Well, this is a big
That's not a helicopter.
It's a presidential drone. And okay, so we're wrapping up. Can you guess who these guys are? Can you guess who these guys are? Can you guess them? Who these guys are? Tomorrow we'll show you. Can you guess who these are?
Oh God.
This is Achiame.
Is it?
Yes, this is Achiame Kwame on the left.
True.
Yeah, and this is Achiame Kofi.
Oh God.
They are
You're giving us an early throwback. But I mean, they look.
Charlie, and to the punch.
But they're good at all. The coats they really used extra material.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so you see, we're blaming Patapa. This is Patapa.
I see your Chairman Kwame has changed. Now he does a slim fit.
But this is Patapa, right?
We'll see you tomorrow. Have a blessed day.